Hello, this is Chris Pickard at Body Imbalance in sunny Hertfordshire, and today I'm going to be doing a different video to what I thought I was going to be doing. I thought I was going to be talking more about energy and breathing exercises, but after I posted something on Facebook last night about a certain American actress who claimed that her diabetes type 1 was now in remission and she was diabetes type 2, and having got some comments about how saying it was, type 1 diabetes is completely irreversible, it's not curable, I thought, well, what I'd do is I'd try and bring everyone up to speed with the actual science, okay? And that is that basically diabetes type 1 is probably curable. Now I say probably because all the science has not yet been done. There haven't been enough trials yet on everything, but I'm going to tell you what's actually happening, and I'm going to tell you where my interest of this came about. I was first told of diabetes type 1. Now let's actually step back, because some people might be watching this and might not know the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes used to be called old age onset diabetes because it came on when people were older, their blood sugar levels would be going up, insulin wouldn't be sucking the blood sugar into the cells, and so they needed various drugs, and then if it gets really bad they need insulin. Type 1 diet, now of course everyone's diet is so bad that there are now more children with type 2 diabetes than at any point in our history, and it's not because our genes have changed, it's because our epigenetics have changed, which is not the same as our genes, and our diet has changed. And then type 1 diabetes is basically, in really basic simplistic terms, it's an autoimmune disorder that switches off the cells in the pancreas that make insulin. So in order for people to live, they need to be on insulin. However, what we know is that some people around the world have completely spontaneous remissions, because the thing that you have to remember about type 1 diabetes is the whole pancreas hasn't shriveled up and died. You're not suddenly missing an organ. It's not like someone's taken your heart out, ripped it out, and you haven't got a heart anymore. It's just a specific part of the pancreas. So the rest of the pancreas is fine. And some people, the beta cells, the beta islet cells, which are the ones that create the insulin, regenerate. I know of someone who basically went on a massive amount of omega-3 fish oils for a year, and their type 1 diabetes suddenly turned into type 2 diabetes. We know from raw food experiments where people have been put on nothing but raw food for 30 days that even type 1 diabetics have been shown to start producing more, or even some, insulin. Because type 1 is not always, sometimes it's not even a complete failure. That's the other thing to remember. Type 1 diabetes doesn't mean complete failure. It just means so low that you have to have insulin because you've got an insignificant amount. We also now know that some people following certain diets and protocols, and nutrition protocols, they have spontaneous remissions. Some people have an illness or a virus, and then when they recover, their pancreas is fully working and making insulin again. I even met someone, okay, because we were talking about health and well-being, and he said, oh yeah, you might find this interesting, Chris. I used to have type 1 diabetes, and then I got kidney disease. I had my kidneys replaced. When my kidneys were replaced, my pancreas started working again. You see, there are so many, and doctors were of course baffled, because it is quite an amazing thing, but there is so much science that is now helping us to understand really what's happening and why it's possible for so many people to improve. And the thing I put up the other day was about a particular American actress who claimed that a type 1 diabetes was cured, and she is now wanting to be classified as type 2 diabetic because she didn't need insulin anymore. And she went on what's called a ketogenic diet. So I'm going to get back to that in a moment, but I want to go to the science of type 1 diabetes, okay, and the cure. And it was all to do with all kinds of strange chemicals that you may not have heard of, such as the mammalian target of rapamycin, HDAX, I won't even go into that, AMPK, so that's adenosine monophosphate kinase, and then there's this thing, neurogenesin 3, okay, which I'm going to get back to because this is really exciting. Okay, so let's start with these are all on PubMed basically. These are all published medical research papers, and we're going to start with reversal of diabetes type 1, so yes, reversal of diabetes type 1 via islet beta cell regeneration following immune modulation by cord blood derived multipotent stem cells. So basically they started off by saying the inability to control autoimmunity is the primary barrier to developing a cure for diabetes type 1. And so what they did is they found a way to basically improve autoimmunity, and they found out that stem cell educator therapy reverses autoimmunity and promotes regeneration of islet beta cells. And so they went on to say, this was in mice, they went on to say that, you know, we need to now start experimenting and seeing what happens in humans. Okay, now I want to go to something else. Okay, this is tyrosine kinase inhibitors reverse type 1 diabetes in non-obese diabetic mice. And they basically found that they completely prevented and reversed type 1 diabetes in these mice. So that's, you know, there is some science that it's completely reversed by looking at autoimmunity. And the thing about the ketogenic diet is we know that it's an amazingly powerful tool because it mimics fasting. It's an amazingly powerful tool for reversing autoimmunity. All kinds of autoimmune disorders seem to improve with the ketogenic diet. As well as being incredibly good for epilepsy, neurodegenerative disorders, really good for pain relief, very good for basically stress relief. It's a very therapeutic diet for fat loss as well. But the trouble is it can be really hard to get into, and if you do have a serious disorder like diabetes type 1, you really need to go at this in a really monitored way. You maybe want to go to start at it slowly, break into it easily, maybe only go onto it 2 weeks at a time, and experiment so that 6 to 12 months is a reasonable long-term time. I don't believe that you should be on it forever, unless maybe you have something where you have to be on it forever, because it doesn't make any sense. Winter time, good time to go into ketogenesis. So we know that the ketogenic diet basically helps autoimmunity. We know that it helps inflammation. We know that inflammation is tied up with what's happening in the pancreas. We also know that the ketogenic diet really stops your need for actually having sugar. So therefore you don't actually need insulin because you're not ingesting sugar and your body's running off of everything else. So is there any science where they've actually looked at the effects of the ketogenic diet on the pancreas? Yes, there is. This is 2017, so this is this year, okay? And the name of the paper is Fasting Mimicking Diet, which is the ketogenic diet. Fasting Mimicking Diet promotes NGN3-driven beta cell regeneration to reverse diabetes. And so NGN3 is neurogenin 3. Neurogenin 3 is something that when we're young we have loads of it, and it basically starts the pancreas and makes the pancreas grow. And when you go into a fast, or when you use a fasting mimicking diet, they found that certainly in mice it produces more, and it can actually completely reverse diabetes type 1. And so that was in mice, and they go on to say, what did they go on to say? That, yeah, FMD promotes the reprogramming of pancreatic cells to restore insulin generation in islets from type 1 diabetes patients and reverse both type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes phenotypes in mouse models. But they also go on to say, in human type 1 diabetes pancreatic islets, fasting conditions reduce pKa and mTOR activity and induce SOX2 and NGN3 expression and insulin production. So we know that in humans the ketogenic diet does actually stimulate this, which stimulates the beta islets, which means insulin. So there is proof, and this is why they were investigating it, because Halle Berry is not the only one claiming this. There are people around the world who are having miracles when they follow things like the ketogenic diet. This is why true scientists don't just go, this is rubbish. They actually go, well, let's investigate this and see what's happening. And that's what scientists are doing. They're investigating it and seeing what happens. So what I did mention there is that the ketogenic diet can be really hard to get into. And again, if you have a serious illness like type 1 diabetes, you really need to work with someone. Okay, don't try and do this alone. You've got to speak to your doctor, you've got to monitor your blood glucose, your ketones. You need to work with someone else. Please, 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 please do not try this at home if you're a type 1 diabetic. Okay, you need to work with a team of people, basically. Get your doctor on board and someone that can guide you through it. So what are some other things? What are the cheats that I spoke about? Well, the cheat methods are to use something called intermittent fasting. I'm not talking about the 5-2 intermittent fasting, I'm talking about the 16-8, or where you skip breakfast or you have dinner early, so you're having a longer window where your body actually goes into the fasting state, where it actually goes into ketosis naturally. Because this, you can test things. A lot of type 1 diabetics are actually doing this anyway, because you fast overnight. So it's just a question of just tweaking things a little bit. So intermittent fasting gets you into ketosis a little bit. Not enough to completely reset your immune system, but just a little bit to get you used to it. And then there's something called exogenous ketones. These are basically, it's a supplement that you take that basically fools your body into thinking you're fasting and you're actually on the ketogenic diet, because it's putting into your body what your blood makes when you're in ketosis. And we know that exogenous ketones, when you take them in humans, that it does actually start working on some of these other pathways, which will then possibly have an effect on this. We don't know for sure yet whether taking exogenous ketones will actually affect positively the beta islet cells. What we do know is that exogenous ketones have a number of other positive effects on how well your system and your body works. And we do know that the ketogenic diet has got lots of science behind it for actually making people live a lot longer lives. So that's it in a nutshell. Type 1 diabetes probably is curable. We're going to find out more about it in the future as more science is done, as more things are produced. But the thing to remember is that if type 1 diabetes really is curable by the ketogenic diet and you need no drugs, who's going to fund this? The thing is, most of the funding of all of the medical research comes from drug companies trying to make something that they can sell to you, which is why drug companies are actually going into exogenous ketone research, because they want to create the drugs from it so that they can give you a pill and make lots of money. You can get exogenous ketones anyway, but the drug companies are trying to make it in a super powerful way, though it's already super powerful. So if you'd like to know which one, the ones I use, then PM me, I'll tell you about it. And if you want some help with ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting, reach out to me, and I'll tell you, if I can help you or not. Okay, so thank you everyone, live long and prosper, and remember that don't just believe stuff because you think it's true. Okay, investigate, look deeper, keep an open mind, and be scientific about what's actually happening. Investigate. Bye now.